But you know what we can talk about right now, Corey?
What can we talk about?
We can talk about the lore corner.
Ooh,
and about everybody's favorite bald, blue-headed man.
Yes, is it this man?
It is in fact, it is Zavala. We're very excited. We've had several friends of the show and listeners ask us to talk about Zavala, talk about the Traveler's Chosen lore, and now that it is officially in-game, we can actually discuss it. We're going to kind of start with a recap of where Zavala has been this year. These next couple of lore corners are going to be a little bit more disjointed because we don't have an entire character history to go through on several of these characters. It's stuff that's already been explained ad nauseum. Kind of our Friends of the Tower series, Friends of the Light, before we start delving into some miscellaneous things going into Beyond Light. Zavala is the first entry in that because he has been at the forefront of everything since the beginning of Shadowkeep. Ikora's kind of taken a back seat. We haven't seen a whole lot of Ikora the last couple of years. We've seen bits and pieces of her, but really since Cade's death, we haven't seen her show up a lot. We've been seeing Zavala more and more, though. And I really feel like, kind of like we speculated before, Zavala may be a Guardian that will embrace the darkness at some point this year. He may be the first major character outside of the Guardian, of course, and Eris to really embrace stasis and embrace the darkness to save humanity.
Yeah.
He, for those who don't know, Zavala has a very long history. He, of course, was around when the wall was built. That's when he would first meet Shax. He would meet Sloane then. This week's Exodus quest, he kind of talks about him and Sloane both talk about their shared history of building the wall together, and it's pretty emotional for him realizing what's going to happen with Sloane, and she is the deputy commander. She's basically his second in command. That's the reason why he went to Titan in the first place during the Red War. But he's after taking a back seat for a lot of Forsaken, he was not happy with us for storming the Reef and ultimately executing Uldren. He has remained steadfast that he thinks there will be consequences to us killing him. And I do think we're about to see the consequences of that action play out this fall, by the way, be it good or for bad. We're going to see that play out. He was one of the ones who sent us back to the moon at the beginning of Shadowkeep to investigate the disturbances that were going on. And, of course, that's when we found Eris Morn, we found the Pyramid, and Zavala's kind of been at the forefront since then. He was kind of taken aback and shocked in a lot of ways when you brought Saint back to the tower. That Saint's alive after all this time. We literally changed the past when everybody thought that he was dead. He really beckoned us to the moon to take out the Vex, stop the Vex invasion. He says, he's really glad that, we took down the Vex with Ikora's help, and of course with Osiris's. And then really we saw him take center stage during Season of the Worthy, and he's remained there since then. He doubts in Rasputin. He's always doubted Rasputin. He doesn't think Rasputin has humanity's best interests at heart, really, and definitely doesn't care about the Guardians or about the Traveler. But him and Anna Bray, of course, infiltrate the Almighty. They realize what's happening, that it is on a crash course for the last city. And they kind of have to work together. He has to learn how to trust Rasputin, which is something Zavala doesn't want to do. Zavala doesn't want to trust a machine, trust an AI really to tell him. He's, of course, in some of these bunkers as we start clearing them out. And he beckons us to retrieve the Fourth Horseman from his personal vaults, from the Vanguard vault. Gives us that quest line. We go through it. Of course, we listen to his funny mixtape he has of Shax's workouts for him. If you haven't listened to that, I encourage you to go down to Zavala's office while it's still open and find that tape and play it. It's pretty funny. So he has us go track all that down, and he shows up most notably at the Io Seraph bunker, and he asks Rasputin. He tells Rasputin, "I want you to convince me that you understand the stakes and you're on our side." And Rasputin responds by showing him a map of the galaxy and showing him the Pyramid fleet. Zavala asks Rasputin, what has his attention? Is it this, rebuild, run, etc.? And Zavala's ghost is actually hijacked by Rasputin. He replays messages from the collapse from those who didn't survive, and Zavala understands finally that while Rasputin gave up everything that was swept away, he nonetheless survived and is afraid to fail humanity again. Like, Rasputin expresses for the first time he's afraid to fail, and that's something that Zavala identifies with. He's afraid of failing. You know, the Taken War happened and ravaged our system. The Red War, we lost our home, we lost the tower. We have only just regained it like a year or two ago. And he comes to an understanding with Rasputin, and that they'll give him basically whatever he needs once they're able to destroy the the Almighty. And of course, Zavala watches the destruction of the Almighty above the city with the rest of us. Part of the tower is hit by the debris, notably right behind Zavala, and he's not fazed by it at all, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, because you can actually jump down there now and kind of like walk around a little bit. Yeah,
and there was a special emblem if you went and scanned it from the time that happened until the end of the season. But this season has actually been massive for Zavala in a lot of ways. He's devastated to find out that Rasputin has been shut down and nullified by the pyramids. And that we see him in his office. We see Eris show up and warn him of Savathun interfering with the messages from the pyramids. And when Zavala basically orders her not to go digging for trouble, and she ignores him and goes to the cradle anyways. Probably the most juicy lore, though, of the season is he meets with the representative of the factions, Dead Orbit, the Future Warcult, and New Monarchy, and he tells them that Rasputin is down, and that Eris is studying the threat. She's basically referred to as their hidden asset. They're not telling the whole universe that Eris is alive and working for them still. She's been missing since the fall of the tower. Mm-hmm. They kind of want to keep it that way, keep it to a very tight-knit circle of himself, Ikora, the Hidden, and the Guardian. He gives them intel on the lunar pyramid that we discovered on the moon and Rasputin in exchange for their aid with preparations for the new threat. And Ikora is a little miffed about this. She thinks he's giving up a little bit too much. And Zavala's like, no, the pyramid threat matters way more than faction politics, and wants her to reach out to Eris because he doesn't know how these groups are going to react once they discover that because he feels it's inevitable. They're going to figure out that Eris is their agent. I think that's setting up a new showdown. The factions have kind of been set off to the side for a while now, and this would kind of be the perfect spotlight to bring them back in Beyond Light. And of course, the final piece of the puzzle is the Exodus questline. When Zavala sends you to the planets, as we discussed, he's very somber about the fates of these characters, which we do learn their ultimate fates in the lore cards that are given to us. Canonically, he's very sad that Sloane wouldn't come back, but he's also, in a way, proud that she's choosing her own resolution. He's not surprised by Asher. He's thrilled that Anna is going to, and spoiler alert, we are going to spoil Anna right here. Anna does decide to come to the tower with Rasputin in tow in a primitive exo body that she's discovered within the Braytech Futurescape. And Vance.
So Rasputin's going to be an exo, sort of. Maybe
we're gonna get into Rasputin a little bit more in a few weeks, but basically, Rasputin is going to be Fellwinter 2.0 is the implication that we're all getting. A lot of us thought it was going to happen at the end of last season, and it didn't. So it is 100% happening canonically now that he is coming to the tower in an exo body. Whether he's walking around in November or not is another matter entirely.
Yeah,
but he will be here. He will be strolling around. And he just basically is like, okay, and Vance, give him the finger. I can't wait. He literally says, look, we can't waste any more time on this guy. He's delusional. We can't waste resources and time on him. And that's just the way it's going to have to be. At the end of this quest line, though, he gives us the Traveler's Chosen sidearm that Corey and I were discussing about earlier. And I'm going to read. It's a little bit of a long passage, but we're going to read this. And the flavor text on it says, all we have left now is our faith. We're going to make an immediate assumption here before we start diving in, because I think it's important to have some context before you read this lore. It does not explicitly say it, but it is strongly, strongly implied. This is being told from the perspective of Savathun towards Zavala. This is Savathun spying on Zavala, and it's implied that she is seeing him through the Ahamkara skull hanging above Shax's crucible area, which we've also discussed it in this season, and I believe here on this show, where the Drifter and Eris have some banter about it, where she's like, you need to tell that oaf to take it down, and the Drifter's like, yeah, he ain't listening to me. Somebody else can have that job. Like, they are very well aware that with Savathun in the system, old relics of the darkness are coming back to life. So the Lord's Hat for Traveler's Chosen reads as follows. I push into my ossific den, and he is there. I see him looking over the side towards his traveler, head bent. He is speaking softly, but I can hear him. Anyone who was listening could. He waits for a response, and I do as well, tense, curious. He stands attentively, this loyal dog of a man. It is no time at all for me, but for him the hours creep by in silence. I'm ready to choke the voice of his traveler if it answers to him. But there is nothing. He tightens his grip on the railing. I feel something shift inside him, and a new possibility presents itself. Again, I press against the sockets. The net creaks softly with my eagerness. Someone approaches, and he turns his back to his traveler. There is an exchange, obscured by the Rubicon thrash. He has given reports, and hope bleeds from him. He gives the messenger a token of his faith. They accept it without understanding its meaning. He watches as they leave. There is a hollow place in his center. It is beautiful. I return warily. I do not see him, but I hear him. He speaks to all with a voice thick of grief. I must learn how far I have been set back. I reach to him tentatively. Strength. I push and feel only sweet, soft rot. I am delirious with pleasure. It gave them no answers. It was a reflex, the spasm of a numb muscle. A song of joy rises within me now. So, Savathun, it can be kind of is ready to, one, silence the traveler if it ever decides to speak. Which we know the speaker basically lied and said that he spoke for the traveler, but he had never actually heard it. We are left wondering if Zavala is going to hear from the traveler, or is Savathun going to stop him? That skull's going to come into play sooner rather than later. They're really setting the stage for, I think, her to be the main seasonal storyline that'll continue throughout the year, leading into the Witch Queen. There's a lot of implications here, and in today's lore piece that was released, which really focuses on the city, it's up on Bungie.net. We're not going to go into that ad nauseum right now, but the implication we get in that is that people in the city are starting to doubt Zavala's leadership. They're starting to doubt the Guardians, really. Like, are they really here to protect us? Like, they just stand up there in their tower all day, like, saying they're protecting us from all these threats, but we never see them. He's leading the Guardians at a very interesting time. Of course, we know the previous Vanguard was Osiris, and he's obviously excommunicated from the city, and Saint 14 left shortly after. Now he's back, but it's kind of, we're gathering all allies to our side at this point. That was the whole purpose of the Exodus quest, and we're going to see if Zavala can lead him through this. I'm very curious to see how specifically the implications of this lore ring through the rest of the year, because I think we may have an answer with Savathun sooner rather than later, in all frankness. I think we may see her make her first move on Europa. We have the Contact public event. Of course, we know that she's interfering with that with the marionettes. I'm very curious to see what they do with her and the continuing darkness storyline, though, because we know she's trying to seize that power for herself and is just intensely jealous that not only did the light choose us, but the darkness that she's pursued for so long is choosing the Guardian as well.
Yeah.
So that is a rather dark lore corner for this. In case you haven't known, there really has kind of been a theme. As we talk more about Savathun, she's a bit scarier than Oryx ever was, frankly.
Yeah.
As a master of deceit and trickery. Very, very, very curious to see what happens. And as we continue to get details on this fall and about this year, I want to see what all we're going to have in our future. with this storyline, particularly with Zavala. I'm very curious to see what they do with Zavala and Ikora this coming year.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to... Man, I... When do you think Savathun's coming? Like, do you think we'll see her before the Witch Queen? Do you think it'll be like a... whatever their version of Season of Arrivals is for next year?
The only way I could see her showing up before then is maybe in a few random cutscenes here and there, like, hey, we're going to show you what's happening elsewhere, kind of like they did with the Uldren Resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that happening. Other than that, I just don't think that we're going to have it. I think that they're going to mainly keep her, let her work in the shadows, maybe have a few strikes or even a raid encounter, maybe even a dungeon that focuses on her advances and on her people. I could see a dungeon where we take down Nokris happening either this year or at the beginning of Witch Queen. Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities there, but yeah, by far this is one of the most impactful lore tabs we've had on a weapon in quite some time.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally get into that quest line tomorrow for sure.
For sure.
Man, that was a meaty lore corner. This is a meaty episode.
This is a very meaty episode.
I like the meaty episodes. I love Destiny, but I love how much you love Destiny. Like, I you know what I mean? Like, every time we go into like the TWAB and you're like breaking it down and all like the little tiny details that like probably 90% of the players skip over or miss or whatever. Like, I love it. I love it.
I reached a point where I started getting really tired of having to have people explain things to me or small changes happening and then not realizing for like months that it was a thing.
Yeah.
Even though I read the TWAB, I never quite understood it. And I want to say it was partway through Forsaken. It was really during Season of Opulence where I was like, okay, I want to learn more about mechanics. Like, mods are about to be way more consequential than they are now with the armor system. Like, I'm going to make sure I understand all of this. Sometimes it takes a YouTube breakdown to understand seasonal mods for me, or to really understand how to do a good build. But other than that, like, I've kind of prided myself on knowing what's going on, not just like in lore, but in combat, in gameplay mechanics, and it genuinely has made the game more fun for me, I think. Yeah. Like, I'm kind of realizing the full vision of what Bungie wants, and like, obviously the game is set up to where you don't have to do that at all. Like, you don't have to have the best mods to have a good experience or to do endgame. It does make it vastly easier for you, but you know, I never had Mountaintop. Like, I've done the raids without Mountaintop. And every time I would go in to do one, especially during Forsaken, people would be like, all right, throw on Mountaintop and Recluse. I'm like, well, I don't have either of those.
Yeah.
So what else can I use? And I like going against the meta a lot of times. I'm not above using a Gnawing Hunger to get Crucible bounties done, but I enjoy playing what I like playing with. There's a reason why I run around with Breachlight and Ashadi sometimes. There's a reason why I run around with Wither Horde and Gnawing Hunger. Like, I want to play with what I like, and I think that makes the game more enjoyable when you understand how things can work together.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so excited for Stasis. It's the biggest gameplay change that we've seen since the game came out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first
subclass. In terms of abilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first new subclass since the Taken King. It's there's been different subclasses, I guess, within the subclasses, but like, this is like the first new change. It's going to change up everything. It's going to change like the way strikes work and the way that you encounter things. Like, it could possibly break old content.
This is the most consequential. To me, this is the most consequential batch of supers since we got the first Tether in Taken King.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, Well was a big deal, but we'd already had self-res before. Like, Well is great, and obviously it's gotten nerfed, but I think it's the most consequential batch of supers. Like, in terms of just changing how the entire field works in every single mode, I don't know that we've quite had one since the Tether came on the scene.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for what this year is going to bring.
Yeah, me too.